Speaker.
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, this bill exposes just how lazy Labor has been after 6 years in opposition, and this bill is the sum total of their contribution to improving New Zealand's management of its environment. It's poor law and it's a vacant bill, and let me explain why. Mr. Speaker, somehow there is a view on Labor's benches that adding the words protection of the environment will somehow save the planet. It's as shallow, Mr. Speaker, as saying that let's just pass a bill that says let's make sure all the children don't go hungry. That will fix it. Let's pass a law for workplace safety. All workplaces will be safe. Let's pass a health act that says nobody will get sick. That's how pathetic this bill is in its contribution to improving the state of New Zealand's environmental laws. And Mr. Speaker, let me share the legal advice from the Ministry for the Environment, because it too shows just what a pathetic bill this is. You see, the Environmental Protection Authority administers the Resource Management Act on a decision like the flyover. It administers the legislation on climate change. It administers the legislation on hazardous substances and new organisms. And each of those acts has a very clear purpose about what it's about. And what the Ministry for the Environment rightly says is that somehow saying that is it the purpose of the RMA, sustainable management, that should make up the decision on a case like the flyover, or should it be this? Can the member answer me? Does the purpose of the EPA, when it makes a decision on the flyover, should it be the purpose of the RMA Act, a purpose clause that's been debated extensively in the House, or should this be it?
No, the EPA has objectives, Nick, and that's how they help.
The member can't give me a straight answer. He actually does not know the answer to that critical legal question, because the point is that the Environmental Protection Authority makes its decisions under the Climate Change Act, under the RMA, under the Hazardous Substances Act, under the purposes that are contained within that Act, and it just creates legal confusion and a mess if you then overimpose the provisions that are in this bill. It's sort of like saying, Mr. Speaker, that if we want to protect the environment, all we need to do is to repeat those two words 10 times and it'll be better environmental protection. Well, let's not put them into the Act 20 times or 30 times. Of course the words environmental protection are in the Environmental Protection Act. Of course the words in the title. Of course the words environmental protection are a core part of the Environmental Protection Authority. But what sort of shallowness masquerades as good environmental policy by putting 2 extra words into the law? Is that the sum total of the intellectual rigour that Labor is prepared to give around the environmental challenges that our country has? They oppose the establishment of the Environmental Protection Authority, and if this is the sum total of Labor's contribution to good environmental law in this country, they need to spend another 100 years in opposition for them to be able to make a contribution to better law in this area. This is a pathetic bill. This bill will do absolutely zip for the protection of the environment. It is the sort of bill you have when you have no other ideas about how to make a contribution. This House should reject this bill, consistent with the sound advice that's come from the Ministry for the Environment. It does naught, it contributes nothing. It is the sort of policy you have when you have no policy.